Thank you. This is the LibGuides workshop. This is put on by the COCIS Tech Lab. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what LibGuides actually is, like the system and everything, see some examples, and then I'm going to kind of walk you through the basics of the content management system. So first, what is LibGuides? So LibGuides is a content management system. It's run by this company called SpringShare. So if you ever get an email from SpringShare, that's just the people that run LibGuides. And so the goal is to allow librarians to curate knowledge and share information, organize it. I think we've all seen a LibGuide at this point where it just has like information and sources so you can learn about different things. Right now it's used in a bunch of different libraries, as we're going to see. I, for whatever reason, pulled up a bunch from academic libraries. So we're going to see some examples from that. And then, so guides are often organized by a subject or topic, or even can be a how-to guide. So like how to knit. So you can learn that from your LibGuide. And then, so I pulled up some examples. The first one I want to look at is Boston University libraries. And so what's really interesting about them is they use a side tab view. And within those side tab views, you can look at different resources. So if you want to find articles and journals, they'll have that. But then also you can click down on the tab and look up article databases and stuff like that. So it's just a neat little kind of tool for a class of the 60s. And it kind of like helps students find what they're looking for. And then I really like the tabs just because you can click in and it'll direct you towards what you're looking for, whether it's finding an article database, e-journals, citing your sources. You can click on that and find that information. Another one that we're going to take a look at is the Illinois Library. And as you can see here, a bit of a different setup. They have the overhead tabs instead of the side nav view. Also, it's a darker blue. You can customize your color and make it look fancy the way you want it to make it look fancy. If you'll notice, a lot of these LibGuides have similar headings. Like the other one had finding articles. This one also has finding articles because what I found in academic research guides is they want to help you find the sources, not necessarily have them all on a platter for you. But then that brings me to my third guide that I pulled up, Miami University. It's a great school. This guide is just the history of Miami. So you'll notice they also go with this side tab view. But there's a lot less of finding sources. They just have everything for you, like Miami University history and a whole page on photographs. So like, because this is a more general guide and you're coming here not necessarily to do research, but to just learn a little bit about the school, it has different tabs and different content for people to look at. And so that's what we're gonna kind of be doing today is what you can do to build your own guide. Because you don't have to do anything that these people did, but chances are you're probably going to do some of it. And it's kind of a weird system. It definitely takes some getting used to. So the first thing we're going to do is go to Simmons LibGuides. For our class, for 407, you're going to want to go to simmons.libguides.com. And that's going to pull up this site. The Simmons Library has a different website for LibGuides. And if you try and log in that way, you're not going to get in.
Can you say it again?
Yeah, so just to reiterate, the Simmons Library has a different LibGuide system. So ours is SLIS or simmons.libguides.com. It's not important right now, but when you go to log in, you're going to want to make sure you go to that site instead of Simmons Library. And so when you go to log in, you're going to come to here, and it'll say something along the lines of what I just said, simmons.com/libguides login. And then when you log in, the first thing it's going to be is an email. If you're a Simmons SLIS student, you've probably had an account created, and that's going to be your email, but it's going to be first.lastname@simmons.com. I'm about to put in my unique email, which is why I'm mentioning that, because don't do that, it won't log you in. But basically what you're going to do is you put your email in. And the first time you log in, you're not going to have a password. We don't set them up with passwords. I've logged in hopefully more than once at this point. So I have this, and this is kind of like what the first page looks like. I have a lovely picture. I I think it's nice to know who the person is creating the LibGuide. But so to get started, it's pretty simple. You just click on Create Guide. And it's going to pop up, and you're going to have all these different options. The big thing is you can choose your layout. So I'm going to start fresh, but you can also actually copy content from people within the Simmons system if they allow it to be shared. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to start fresh. You name your guide. You're going to find out I like soccer a lot because that's all my examples are going to be. You add a description so people can know what the guide's about.
Ben, can you slow down a little bit?
Oh, of course.
Just pause between the different steps that you're giving. Thank you.
Yeah. So guide name, basically, when you get into the system, it's going to have that name. That's how people are going to find it. The description will give you some basic information on what the guide's about. So if people are looking for a topic, they're going to search here. So for mine, it's just going to be a guide to Manchester United. But that way, if you're looking for a guide on how to knit, I don't know why knitting's a thing for me today, you would be able to look up a guide and it would have a description saying, this is how we're going to teach you how to knit. The next step is guide type. So what is the guide's audience? It has a couple of different ones. General purpose. So general purpose is just the basic idea. This is just like a general guide. Course guide, like the example from Boston Libraries, where it's like, this is for course history 206. Subject guide, a general guide about a subject like history, I don't know. Another one, topic guide, that's what I'm going to do today because it's on a particular topic, which is Manchester United football. And then there's also a final one, the internal guide, which is for the institution you're with. It's just in the system so other people can look at it and pull things from it. So you can also assign it to a group so people can work on it. For this thing, we are not going to assign a group. You can also set a password so people need to log in with it. I'm not going to set a password for this guide. And then the final thing is share guide content. There's 3 settings. No means you're not going to share it with anyone, only you can access it. You have internal, which means anyone at SLIS LibGuides would be able to access it, so all of you in the system. The last one is community, which is anyone in SpringShare, anyone with LibGuides would be able to have access to it. Is there any questions right now? Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties. I'm a few steps behind. How exactly do we log into the LibApp's website? Do we need to create an account?
No. So the Tech Lab actually creates accounts for students at the start of the semester. You may have gotten an email at the start of the semester from SpringShare, not from us, saying you had an account created. Try your first.last name at simmons.edu, and if it's still not working, we will help you get that all set up. It might not happen right now, but that's the frustrating part.
So I'm going to encourage everybody to ask questions now or to stop Ben at any point by putting your hand up if we're getting ahead of you, because there's a lot we're going to throw at you.
I also talk really fast.
Yes. So please put your hand up if you have,
Yes.
if you want him to pause or slow down. You've been given warning that he talks fast.
It is, you know,
Yes.
you get a little nervous.
Oh, yeah. We
I'll
all
slow
do.
down. I'll get really slow towards the end of this.
And also, if you just want to follow along by what's on the screen, if you prefer to do that the first time, that's okay too.
Yeah, because I mean, also I work here Mondays and Thursdays. So if you're still having trouble with LibGuides, like I'm here 12 hours a week. You can always come bother me 8:30 till 2 o'clock. I'm here.
I recommend coming by and getting help from Ben or anybody if you get stuck.
Yes.
They're fabulous, and most of the people who work in the COCIS Tech Lab can also help you, even if Ben's not here. So if you'd rather follow along what's on the screen, you can do that, or you can do both. You can work alongside. I think you can.
Cool. So we're going to create the guide. Got this nice fresh look. You're going to look, you got this home screen, and you have this thing called Add Top Box.
Can you use your mouse to show us? Thank you.
Yes. So you have Add Top Box, you have Add Column. This is where we're going to add content. We're going to wait on that for a second, just because I want to talk about how you can set up your different layouts. So if you come up to the Layout tab, it's right next to the page settings, right here. You click on it, it's going to have a bunch of different things. Column 1, 2 columns, 3 columns. It's basically giving you how many boxes you want within your LibGuide. And then the little numbers next to some of these columns, like it says 2 columns, 50/50, that's just telling you how much space each column is going to take up. I think it's best if I just click on one and show you how it changes it. So if I go to 2 columns, it's going to update the content. And now my face is really, really big. You can all see it. I think this gets more important as you add content, because you're going to think, wow, I have this great idea. I added all these videos, images, and then all of a sudden one image is really, really long and tiny and doesn't really fit in the box. So just remember layout. You can change your columns. I personally like this view with the 3 columns, not necessarily my face in the center. Is there any questions about kind of changing the layout? No. Cool. So, and you can always change the different columns. You can be done with your guide and change that setting. It will mess with the content. You might have to rework things, but it can always be changed. The other thing you can do when starting your page is to change the tab layout that we talked about. This one has the top tabs. You can change it to the other format by going to this little picture right here. Guide navigation layout at the very top. It's going to have this lovely little box that says default, because Simmons has the default as the top tab layout. And you can go to the side nav layout, which is the only other option for our LibGuide system. But if you click on that, click save, it changes it, and now you have the side tabs, and it's a little different. You can't rearrange the columns in this section for whatever reason. You still add boxes like normal, and still add all the content. It's just a little bit different. I personally like the top columns. Do you have any questions about the side column layout or the side tab layout? Because I'm going to do most of the work in the top column, like navigation layout, top tabs. Awesome. So now we've kind of gone over the basics of this. We're going to actually start adding some content to this. So the first thing we're going to do is just add a box. So I'm going to go to add box column 2. When this pulls up, it's going to have box name. So this is going to tell people what this piece of content is about. So since I've already said Manchester United football, the LibGuide system actually remembers that and will autofill if I wanted to. But I'm just going to put Manchester just to give you an idea of typing that in. There's 4 different types of boxes, and we're going to briefly go through each. But the first one we're going to do is standard. There's a tab setting, a gallery setting, and a profile one. The profile one is just like a picture of you, like you see over here. So we'll start with standard. The other thing you can do is change the position. If you only have one thing in a box, which we currently have, it's only going to let you be at the top of the column. The other thing you can do is a floating box. The floating box, you won't be able to tell when you're editing because it'll always have the box. It's always going to be there. But titled it Manchester with the floating box, that content and that title is going to disappear, and it's just going to have whatever I put in the box. But it's hard to show you unless I do a view guide, because it's always going to have the boxes while you're editing. The last thing is draft mode. When you're creating a LibGuide or updating it, you can put certain content like this box in draft mode, so that way people can't see it if they're finding your LibGuide and it's already been posted. For whatever reason, you want to add a whole thing about other books, but you're not ready for people to see it, they won't be able to see it. But then we save once we add a new box. So now we have the box Manchester. And this is where you can start kind of adding content. And it's under the add reorder button right here. Some of the things it has that I'm going to talk about today is the rich text one, databases, you can add links, media. I think the media one's the coolest one because you can add videos, book from the catalog, and then those are the ones I mainly use, but you can also add files, an RSS feed, a guide list, polls. You can put Google in there because we all love Google, and a remote script. So the first thing we're going to do is just to give you an idea of like what this kind of looks like is the add rich text /HTML. You're going to get this neat little box. I think it kind of looks like Microsoft Word, like you have that hover box. And this is where you can start kind of adding content. So I'm going to start just by adding text. It's pretty easy just to add text because you can just write it here. In the box, the cursor's already there. Going to call it, this is a piece of text. It's really, really tiny right now, but that's not a problem because we can change that. With the text, it, like I said, kind of like Word, you can change the font. So right up here, I can change it to Arial. I like a good Georgia font. And then you can change the size because, you know, that's kind of hard to see. If I can scroll, let's make it 18. It's still really tiny. And change it even more. This is the hardest part of this, is getting your font size down. So you got 22, you can also bold it, underline it. It's all the little buttons you've seen probably before in Word, italicize it. I like red, so we're gonna make it red. So you know it's a piece of text. Another thing with it, the position at the bottom right here, it's that same thing. You can put the text or the box where you want it to. Just when there's only one piece of content, it's only going to let you have it at the top of the box you're working in. So that's kind of how you add text. Is there any questions with putting text in this text box? You just click Add Rich Text when you click on the Add Content in the box. No? Awesome. So the next thing is we're going to add an image. I think images are really, really cool. So you click on this little image button. It's right here. It kind of also reminds me of clip art, Microsoft Word. It's ingrained. I had an image idea pulled up. So you can add images two ways in LibGuides. The first one is through a link, which is what I'm going to show you now. So you take it. It's going to ask you for a URL. So I'm going to copy and paste this URL I had. I'm going to click OK. And now you got this wonderful image that doesn't really look good to scale. You can right-click on the image, scroll down and go to image properties. And you can actually manipulate the width and height so it seems more reasonable. I like a good 3:2 ratio. It seems to work the best for me. But you can also add a border, change the alignment. You can also change that in the actual box. But you'll click OK. The really, really important thing is whenever you add content, make sure you save and close. Don't close. If you close, the content's not going to be there. So we're going to save and close. That image looks pretty neat. So you have that there. If you didn't like it there, you have this little button right here. I think it's a pen and a piece of paper. You click on it, and you can click the edit button, and it just pulls the box back up. So for whatever reason, you're like, that was the worst image I've ever put in something. I don't like it. You can go in, change it, change the text around. You don't think this is a piece of text is the best identifier for something. you're able to change all that. And then within that, you can enter down. There is the alignment buttons right here for left, center. You can click on it, and as long as you're on that line of text, it'll line it up that way. So I center a lot of my images.
We have a question.
Yeah.
How do you edit this? How do you edit the spacing in the text?
The spacing in the text?
Yeah.
Does she mean like between words?
Do you mean between words?
Yes.
Okay, we'll find out. You can.
But like I said, save and close. I'm gonna wait just a hot second. Does anyone have any questions in the group right now?
Between lines.
Between lines. So just click enter is how I've always done it. I'm sure there's probably a better way to do it. I have noticed when I try to do text, it can be kind of weird until I play around with it. But yeah, when I had weird text sizing, I resized the font a couple times and then clicked enter, and it seemed to fix most of my problems. If you do have bigger questions, I would add our email to that, the COCIS Tech, and we can figure that out. So that's how you add text and images. The other thing that we're going to add right now within the same kind of box, if we go back and click edit, is there's this neat little button. This is a table. It'll add a table. So it comes up. It gives you some ideas like rows, columns. What do you want? I do like 5 by 6 normally. The reason I bring this up is all the LibGuides I've made at my job has a table, and they do it for like keywords. Like it's a great thing to have at the top of your LibGuide. Put your keywords here so people know what to search for. Click OK. I added a header at the top, so it should bold. It's not bolding. But so the idea with the table is I would put keywords for like Manchester United, because if you're going to my LibGuide, you might not know what that is. And just add a couple keywords. Once again, you can save and close. I think the table is just a good way to organize if you want people to have good book recommendations, but you don't necessarily want to put it from the catalog. Like I said before, key search terms, because I don't know, I go to a search bar and I never seem to know the words I want to express. And LibGuides are a great tool to like help that student out. Like when you're searching for a football team, it's good to have football in the search term. Is there any questions about tables and adding tables? Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is you can add books from the Simmons catalog, library catalog. You can actually add them from other libraries as well, but I used Simmons when I was practicing my presentation. The one thing I will say is if you're looking for a specific book that Simmons has, I would just always use the classic catalog. Otherwise, you might come back with like 1,000 things that you don't even have access to. That's a problem I ran into at my library because their library catalog goes through the Minutemen network. So even when you're using their catalog, it goes through that, which can be frustrating. So I already have a book picked out. So you search for it. The Game of Our Lives is the book I had. It's just about general soccer stuff. I figured it fit the theme I'm trying to go to. But so I have that pulled up. I want to add this book to my LibGuide. I go all the way back over here. I'm going to add a third column because I want my books to be separate. That's something you can do. I'm going to name it books. Add content. So if you go down here, there's a book from the catalog button. So the one really, really nice thing is the ISBN number. You can input that from the source you're taking it from, and it'll autofill a lot of this information. So if you go down on the Simmons catalog, they have these. If I can copy and paste. So you put that number in, and you can click Get Book Info. So it'll actually auto-populate a lot of the information you might want. It'll do the title, right here, the author/editor, David, publication date. It won't, for whatever reason, add call numbers, which I think working in a library system, it's really nice to have that there. So I normally go back and copy and paste it in, like, oh, it's GV, other information. So that way, because assuming, especially in an academic library, if you're going to this site, chances are you have access to the library, and it'd be good to be able to physically access the source. You can also have a URL to it. And then sometimes it'll add a description, other times it won't. So this one did, it did take a description of the book, which apparently is a masterly portrait of soccer in contemporary Britain.
So Ben, can I just add that you have to create your own descriptions for this assignment?
Yes, so this is a neat tool.
It's very important because that would be considered basically plagiarism, but basically you don't have to read the book, but you can read the description, you can reword it. This is the essential guide and directory to the history of Manchester United and its role in the soccer world, that sort of thing. You have to come up with your own description. It can be brief and doesn't need to be as long as the Simmons catalog.
Yeah. So this is a note for your future careers, not for the 407 assignment.
No, for the 407 assignment.
407 LibGuides assignment.
Yes, you cannot. Yeah, not for your future careers. I'm sorry. I thought you were saying the opposite. Yeah, but for the 407 assignment.
Yeah, no, don't do this for 407. Don't listen to anything I just said. Another really, really cool thing is the description display. So you can choose to have the little blurb that I have right there display right underneath the title. You can have it come up when it displays, when you go over the picture of the book, it'll come up. Hover over the info icon, that's that little like black eye. And then you can also hide it. I don't know why you'd add a description if you want to hide it, but you can do that. The last thing, because I use this great number, it put the cover art in for me. Sometimes books and catalogs don't have cover art, but people really, really like images. I think it kind of draws people in. If for whatever reason you don't have that, you can either try and find it through Amazon, which I have had trouble with, or there's an other where you can actually get a link to the cover art. So I could click on the cover of this book, theoretically right click on it. There it goes. When you do this, you have to copy the link address. Don't like copy the image, but if you click copy link address right here, copy and paste it into that field, and you click save, it should still maybe not have the image. It doesn't have cover art at googlebooks.com. I will try and find that real quick. But it's one of those things. Yes, Kevin.
Oh, sorry. For what was the step for us to copy the image address in? Is it in the cover art type, like where it says synthetic?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Kevin. So yeah, it is over there. Synthetics, I think, is for the system, like if you're doing it automatically. I've always clicked on that button and clicked other. And then once you have other up, then you enter the link address. So my example just didn't work right now, so I just searched the title of the book, go on to images, and you can find this like neat little image on the internet. And like I said, click copy image address. Don't copy the image, it won't come up. And you do that, try and save. There, and this time it did work. So I saved it, and you have the nice little picture of the book. This blurb is really, really long. I don't recommend that.
Is it necessary to cite the image source?
Is it necessary to cite the image source?
Cite the image, meaning did it come from the Simmons catalog or?
Well, in this case, you pulled it from Amazon.
No, we don't need the image source. No.
I'm going to be honest.
I don't think so.
I have never cited image sources when making LibGuides. I don't know. I consider it free use.
Do you think, well, there is an alt text field, maybe we could credit the creator there?
You could. That is actually a very good point, Kevin. That is something we should all consider. The problem is that in the time of this presentation, if I go to try and look for the image, it might take a while. But that is actually something to consider.
Yeah, I would say in general, if you grab book covers from Amazon or from Google or from a catalog, the practice is usually you don't cite it. You just put the picture of the cover.
Yeah, like I said, I just consider it free use. I don't know if that's really what you should do, but that's what I do. So is there any questions about adding a book to the catalog or from the catalog to your LibGuide? No? So just to reiterate, I'm going to click that edit button, but you just put in the ISBN number. Hopefully it'll auto-populate. If not, you just got to do a little bit of extra work, add the title, the author, add an image if you want, and then you just click the little save button, and he pulls up. So now that we have books, because books are important to have in a LibGuide, we can add some video content, which I think is more interesting, right?
And can we also talk about how to add books that are not owned by the Simmons Library?
We can also do that.
That would be great.
So
For many of the topics for the LibGuides that the students are creating, we don't have books in the catalog.
yeah, so what I actually end up doing, because of where I work, the academic library I work for, one, doesn't have a lot of fiction, and two, doesn't have a lot of books. Comparatively. Should really rephrase that statement, comparatively. So the kind of bad thing is that normally it's not going to do all these nice things. I think I'm just going to use Amazon as an example because I would have to log into my other work account to access the library. But the one nice thing is as long as it has the ISBN number, it'll probably populate. I'm going to use Amazon as an example and see if this one works. For whatever reason, some will do it and some won't. That, Linda, is a question out of my control for knowing why it doesn't want to do that.
I think it's, so there are two different ISBN numbers, and it only accepts one of them. I don't remember if it's the ISBN 10 or whatever the other one is.
I think it's the 13. It wants the
So,
13.
But that would be useful if you find books in Amazon or a bookstore website that
Yes.
are critical to be included in your LibGuide.
So I just did the 10 one and it worked.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
I think the bigger thing here is that if for whatever reason the library catalog doesn't have the book, or you find it from another source and it doesn't have the ISBN, you can still manually enter all this information in. I do it a lot actually for my LibGuides because Minutemen Network, not a lot of them, at least the books I find, don't want to auto-populate even though they have those numbers. So I normally put it in, especially if I can't find it in the library's catalog I'm looking for, I definitely include a URL. It helps you go find things a lot faster. I know URLs eventually go dead, but especially if it's for a semester class, it's really, really nice to have. But yeah, just adding, you can add all the information in by hand. It is just extra work. So hopefully you have that nice ISBN number.
And put a description of the item from Amazon. If it's a book that's on your subject, a new book on, let's say, Manchester United, you have to create your own description as well. So you can read Amazon's description. You can read about the book on its so the book has its own website, but you have to come up with your own little, sentence or two about the book.
Yes. So do your own work, basically.
But when you're doing it out in the world, you don't have to worry about that.
So any more questions before we continue on? Got one, Kevin?
Yeah, how do we get the ISBN number of the book on the Amazon page?
So Amazon, it's normally like underneath the title picture. Yeah, you just have to hunt sometimes. I find Control F, ISN normally finds it. But yes, good question because it does hide sometimes and it can be frustrating. Anything else? So the next thing we're going to do is videos. This is my favorite part of LibGuides because I like watching things. So box name, I'm just going to put video Still gonna stick with this standard button, but now that we have different images inside the column boxes that I was talking about, so I'm adding a new box to column 2, I can actually reorder the content based on what I already have. I'm just gonna keep it at the bottom of the column because I prefer to add all my content and then rearrange later. I think it just works better for me because if I had to rearrange each and every single time I add an item, I go crazy. So you're gonna save, you have video. Once again, we go to this lovely add and reorder button. And we're gonna scroll down past rich text and all this to media and widget. It's gonna ask you for a name. So try and find a descriptive name for the video. The one I'm gonna pull up is Manchester United versus Chelsea. It's just a highlight video. So I'm gonna title it that. So the name is important so people know what it is, but the really, really important thing to get your video work is to get the embed code. I pull a lot of videos from YouTube. Other places have different functions for doing this, but basically you're going to find a video you want and see if it has an embedded video code. So if you go over to YouTube, it's really, really nice because one, you can just right click. And it actually has a little button that says copy embedded code. And you can click on that. And you don't see the code, but now it's basically in your clipboard so you can paste it. It also has it down with the share button. So it'll have this neat little thing that says embed. And you can add that. Links won't work, so don't try and like link a YouTube video because it's just going to like pop up and you'll just see a link. It won't play any video. But if you go over here, we're going to copy and paste that embed code in. We're going to have it at the top of the box. We click save. And we have this lovely, lovely video. And I can click play to prove it works. Really like volume.
It's coming from the computer. For
Awesome.
some reason, the room speakers weren't working today.
Great.
Sorry.
We get the idea.
Yeah, so theoretically there is sound. I just don't want to watch all these highlights again. I'm sure you guys don't want to either. It was a great game though. But see how it plays in the space. You can enlarge it. It's like being at YouTube, but not there. Yeah, so that's how you add videos. Is there any questions about kind of adding the content at this point? One thing I did find frustrating is, especially with YouTube videos, they put restrictions on that, certain users will. So I had this great video, it was a lot shorter than this 12-minute video, but the creator of the YouTube channel is like, no, you can't embed things. So it wouldn't work. It would give you the code and everything, it just wouldn't work. So it's something to like keep in mind when you go to pull these out. Yeah, so now let's talk about the different kind of box types because I've been pretty much just hitting the one type. So when you click on add box, there's actually multiple types. I find that standard is the one that I use all the time, but there is a couple other ones. There's tabbed, which we'll just click on to get a good view of. Once again, bottom of the column. And here it'll give you the option to add content. It's really weird that it doesn't have like the little notepad thing. It has a settings button right here that you click on. And you can create tabs like fun. Create the fun tab. And then from there, it'll actually have the option to add more tabs. What rhymes with fun, sun. So we're gonna create those two. You can also move the positions once you have multiple ones created. Depending on which tab you want students or users, patrons to see. You save your positions. You always have to click that save button, otherwise it'll be gone. And then you close. So now we have this box, and you can do a lot of the same stuff you do with the standard box. It's just a different view. So you can click off, but then you can add. See how we have all the same stuff of rich text, HTML, databases, media. Just to show you, it's the same kind of view. So, hello. save and close, but then you can click over to the other tab. There it goes. It can be a little slow sometimes. And you can add other content. For tab stuff, I tend to just add general sources that you might have a little blurb about, but not necessarily too much information on, so it's like nice, neat, and organized. But to be honest, it's probably my least used box of all of them. You can also delete boxes. So for whatever reason, the Fun Sun tab wasn't working for you. It gives you a lot of warnings. It tells you, hey, you're deleting this. That is a very important thing I haven't brought up now. LibGuides automatically saves everything that you do, especially when you click the save button, but it also deletes everything that you delete. So if you say, I don't want this box anymore, that box is actually gone. Like there's no way to come back to it. So it always gives you the option to say, hey, I understand this can't be undone. You delete it, the box is no longer there. Same with your actual guide. I can show you how to delete a guide if you want me to, but once you delete the guide, it's gone. So moving back, we're gonna rename practice box, the different types. I actually really like the gallery box right here. This is the third type. For databases, I think it looks nice. You save it. Similar thing here with the settings tab. Click on that. And so now it's like a lesser version of PowerPoint, I feel like, because it's like you want to add new slides. You can actually add a variety of things, images, books, databases, LibGuides, LibCal event. I've never done the last one, but I tend to just do databases for these. And the weird thing is that, so I clicked on databases, it's when I add a database, you have to like start clicking in the database you want. For this one, we're gonna do academic search complete. You click add. You can add text right here. You can add an image. I don't have any images saved. I also don't know if Academic Search Premier has like an image for it, but you can do that. You can say, this is for research. Save, let's add another one so you can get the idea of kind of what you can do with it. I know, Linda, you're really into business, so we'll do the business source premier. Is that good?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Is that a good
Yeah, it's very
database?
good. Yeah.
Cool. So now we have two of them. Some of them already have text attached to them, as we can see with the business one. Others, for whatever reason, you can just add your own, have fun. So over in the gallery settings, this is where it kind of gets like PowerPoint. You have the automatically play, the slide speed, transition type, transition speed, height. Do you want to show dots? The weird thing about slide speed is it does everything in milliseconds. So if you want it to be 3 seconds, it better be 3,000, which always seemed odd to me, but it's how it works. So we'll just do 3,000 seconds or 3,000 milliseconds. I always turn it to automatically play on. I just think it looks aesthetically nice, as you'll see in a moment. So we're gonna save and return to guide. So see how it like automatically scrolls. I find this really nice, especially for students that have never used databases or LibGuide before, because they might just think there's one there. But when you have it rotating, you see other different options. Is there any questions about databases or kind of the gallery view? Yeah, cool. So the last type of box is the profile box, which is this neat little guy right here. So if you want to do that, you can have it set to multiple pages have it. Let's just delete my face for a second to give you an idea. So you click column 1, box name, I'm just going to call myself author, type of box, profile. And then since I'm logged in as myself and I have an image of myself, it just like pulls me out of Oblivion, I guess. Here I am. So those are the different box types. Is there any questions kind of with that general idea of it? Of how to maybe add boxes, what you can do with them? No? Cool. So adding tabs, this is like the fun part, because for our LibGuide project, you have to have like resources and citations. You add that by clicking this nice little button right here, the add button. It's always going to be next to your tabs. You can add. So page type, there is a couple different pages. So what we were on right now was a regular page. There is a discussion and a blog page. I've seen both the discussion and the blog pages. I've never seen anyone actually use them, but the basic idea is especially with the discussion one, people can comment and add comments to it. It's going to ask you to name the page. So the name page is what's going to show up on the actual tab. So we'll just put football. Description, it'll add a little bit more information about it. Just say it's about sport. So the position is pretty important if you liked the Boston University of the structured tabs, because you can actually have it as a sub of home or just a top level tab. So if it's top level, it'll be horizontal to it. If it's a sub tab, it'll be slightly below it actually. But we're gonna make it a top level page. You can add your profile if you want. Most people only have it on the first page. And then draft mode is if you're not ready for people to see the page. This is the LibGuide you've been working on for a while, but you want to add something new to it, but you're not ready to roll out the content yet. But we're just going to go for it. So you got another tab. Notice how it displays at the top. It's football. Once again, we have the same page layout. So now that we have multiple pages, you can do the same thing with content. You can change the layout as we talked about in the beginning. From 3 columns to 2, it's only going to affect this one page. You can do that, but now that we have multiple pages, we can actually go to the page settings button. And if you scroll down to pages, you can actually rearrange and reorder. So all of a sudden, you don't want the home button to be first for whatever reason. You can reorder it and save it. Now home is first or second and football is first. You can also go to page properties at the top right here. If for whatever reason you hated the name of your page, the description, the one thing you can't change is the page type. But I want to add that it's football Manchester. I can do that. But that's how you kind of add tabs. It's going to be really important when you need to add different information that you don't want to put everything on the home page, right? So that's kind of adding tabs. The one last thing that might be worth going over is that you can add CSS in JavaScript and HTML to LibGuides. It's something I am willing to learn and show you if you all are interested as you go to work on your LibGuides. But basically, when you go to the top settings, it's the image right here. It'll actually have a little drop down for guide, custom, JavaScript, and CSS. This is where you would dump CSS for like an outer thing in, but you can also put CSS and HTML in the pages. If you click on it, add a box, rich text HTML, you can also add it there as well. I personally have not added a lot of HTML to my LibGuide. I tend to just stay in the system, but it is something you can do. Is there any like final questions? Anything you'd want me to show you again? Well, this is what LibGuides is. I hope this presentation makes it seem less scary. But yeah.
Thank you.